Okay, if we would all please stand. Mr. Jim is going to offer an invocation for us.
Let's pray. Father, we thank you for loving us and being so kind and merciful to us, Lord. Just know we have just want to be with guide and direct us, that we might serve you, that we might serve this community in the best interest of all the heart. I'll be listening now, Lord, to our prayer in Jesus' name. Amen.
There is a flag in the back of the room. If you turn that way, we'll offer the pledge.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, we'll go ahead and call the meeting to order. And the first item is going to be the approval of the agenda. I think we all received the agenda last week to take a look over.
That's contract.
We do have one addition to the agenda, and that is going to be under project updates to add PF Man to the agenda. So if you will go ahead and notate that on your agenda.
What will that be?
Item 5, project updates. If there's nothing else, we'll go ahead and open for a motion to approve the agenda.
What about the thing on back there? Is that what we got to put that on there or not?
That's under completion.
Okay. Well, I was told last week that we weren't going to talk about the kingdom.
We don't have to.
Oh, it's fine with me. I just like to be told, what's going on.
Okay. There it is.
Well, I just got that thing late yesterday afternoon.
His meaning was to hear an explanation.
Well, that's going to be interesting too, because I really looked over that thing.
Do you want to discuss it or not?
Yeah, that's fine. Yeah, sure. I just don't like to be stuck it on me at the last minute.
Okay, so the agenda has been moved and seconded. Any further discussion from the board? Any public comment? Ms. Christie?
You want to do those two add-ons?
Oh, yes, I'm sorry. I have 2 add-ons that I would like to add. We can do them under project updates. One is the roof tile removal task order, and the other is website analytics tracking. I will handle the roof tile removal task order if you add them to the agenda, and Kristen will handle the website analytics tracking.
I'll amend my motion.
And Davia, are you good with that? Okay, any further discussion from the board? Mr. Coleman?
I'll echo what Mr. Samuel said. These agendas come late every month. Stuff is added on at the last minute, big stuff. The agenda that you sent out on Friday, late, looks like a very rough outline. It's not an agenda. The backup material was meaningless. The financials, which we're going to talk about later, are absolutely meaningless. There's no backup to those. And now, I see this morning, I believe a couple of grant recipients showed up. I would imagine they're just coming here to watch the meeting. I wouldn't guess that they're going to be talking. Their name is not on the agenda. The appearances are that this agenda is cooked, it's manipulated, and it's put together in such a way to present things so that it's going to be more convenient and comfortable for things to get done. Slide buttons. That's why you see people like Mr. Samuels who actually reads this stuff, complain because he's confused. Then when he asks questions, he's demeaned and belittled and made to look like, well, you're an old man, you're just confused.
That's your
Don't worry
opinion.
about it, we'll take care of it. No, it's an observation. And then I see people like you, or the leader of that little pack that tries to demonize him. You.
So I'm demonizing Donaldson.
Oh, yeah, no doubt about it.
In your opinion?
In my opinion.
Okay, let's move on, guys. Thank you for your comments.
Okay.
Mr. Kirkland?
Yes, ma'am, and I wouldn't be too happy about being interrupted by you unless the chairman tells you to do it. Let's all try to obey the rules.
Let's keep your comments to the agenda. Thank you.
Okay, all right. I've been looking for the documents ever since the meeting when it was supposed to be continued, and I've been getting on song and dance about it. And then we got that thing, yesterday morning, we don't have nothing. 3:37 p.m., we have this thing here, which we're not going to talk about that in a minute because I guess we'll talk about it later. My complaint, my issue is you sent out a XLS, and I'm not no expert on that XLS stuff, but I printed it out, but it prints out in 4 pages, but some of the stuff on page number 1 goes to page number 3. It goes over there, so you got to come apart, tape it together, and make a big quilt to have the information. And there may be a way that's easier than that, but that's the only way I could have found. I didn't have but a few hours to get that thing printed out. And that, huh?
It's called set your print area when you do.
Do what?
You gotta set your print area.
If you do,
Okay,
whoever wrote it, it went from one to the other. If you shrink it to 1 page, you ain't gonna be able to read it. It's gonna be so fine.
That's a setting on your computer and your printer. So any other comments about the agenda?
Well, just finish on this issue. Public records are supposed to be easily usable by the public. Thank you.
Any other public comment? If not, all in favor? Anyone opposed? We'll move on to approval of the minutes. Looking for a motion to approve. Do we have a second? Any discussion from the board? Any public comment? If not, all in favor? Anyone opposed? Okay, Ms. Christie, we'll move on into our rules of procedure.
There were just a few changes from the previous month that Ken wanted to make. If you go to section 1, I took out the part about the section, about the civic center location, and didn't feel that we needed that in there, so I removed that. For number 2, appearance before the board, if you go down to letter D, middle of the paragraph, it says if a person does not do so, he or she is subject to removal. The individual will receive 1 warning. Being out of order includes, but is not limited to, raising of the voice, yelling, etc.
Where are you?
Section 1,
Section 1. D?
yes. Yes.
Is this the public thing? This is for public that you're talking about?
Yes.
Okay, thanks. Sorry.
If you go to the next page, I removed D, so there's only A, B, and C, since it was the same as the 2D before. If you go to section 3, We changed the quorum wording. A quorum for the transaction of business by the board consists of a majority of them serving. If you go to the next page, if you go to C2, we changed it to say the chair will direct the individual to leave the meeting site. If the individual fails to leave as requested, the sergeant at arms shall be asked to remove the individual from the meeting room.
Your word was,
Page 11.
did we skip section 2?
I don't think we had anything on section 2. There was nothing on section 2. So we're in section 3. Does everybody know where we're at now?
We're on 12, right?
Yes, correct. I'll reread it. The chair will direct the individual to leave the meeting site. If the individual fails to leave as requested, the sergeant at arms shall be asked to remove the individual from the meeting room. That part was changed. And we also, if you go down to number 14, where it says voting on the same page, I took out section 286.011. So it just says pursuant to section 112.3143. And those were all of the changes to the document.
So as I understand, this is the final draft and it has been reviewed by Ken.
Yes, he made the changes, and I just updated the document.
Okay, thank you. So we have discussed this, I believe, at 2 prior meetings. We can adopt this at today's meeting, or we can wait until a future meeting. What's the pleasure of the board?
What about discussion?
Well, that's what I'm asking, whatever you would like to do with the document today.
I'd just like to ask a few questions, if it's all right. How many other boards, appointed boards in the county has these services?
I don't know.
Can you tell me, Mike?
I'm not aware of any others that do.
Is the commission going to take our lead and adopt these, you think?
They have other rules.
Yeah, they have their own
Our
rules.
rules and procedures are very, very similar to these. I don't know, I doubt there's no difference in them.
Yeah, the majority of this came from the BOCC.
Okay, okay, number C, came from the county commissioners.
Which section are you on?
2C,
No.
what's the reason for C?
Because of discussion that has been had in the board meetings regarding people keep bringing up issues of going into business operations, I put that in there,
Why do
based
you-
on discussion.
Okay, I understand. Why do you think they have been doing that?
Based on board discussion and what's been going on in board meetings.
No, I mean, why?
I don't know that Christie's I think that you should ask board members why they're doing that. I don't think Christie's the person to answer that
She
question.
wrote this.
She wrote
Based
it
on
at the
board
direction
discussion.
of board discussion. She didn't just pull it out of the thin air.
Okay, who do I need to ask?
I think you need to ask board members.
Okay, I'll ask any board member, what's the reason for number C?
I'd like to answer the question.
Sure, you're not a board member, go ahead.
Is it okay?
Sure,
It looks like it's to maintain order and try to get to these meetings with a minimum of interruptions and a minimum of fuss. I think the whole purpose of this meeting is for everyone that has anything to say it. But at some point, you need to wrap it up.
Well, I'm not sure that's exactly what this is saying. I think this is saying that if a board member cannot get questions answered about a company, and they go maybe to the website or maybe even call the company or something to try to get information, that they're not to do that. And I think what would happen, that is, if a board member or even a citizen could get their questions answered about a company, that you wouldn't have a need for this. But it seems to be almost impossible sometimes if a board member has questions about a company, they can't get an answer. And all you gotta do is answer it and the question goes away.
I don't exactly agree with your statement, because I think there've been a number of issues that we discussed and had quite a healthy debate on that don't go away and that repeatedly get brought up in meetings. Now, going back to your question, one of my concerns as the chair of this board is that we all need to be mindful that our job is to promote and foster economic development. And when we as board members start interfering with operations of companies that, we should be the marketing arm of Hardy County. We should be the salespeople. We should not be attacking companies, attacking investments made on behalf of Hardy County as board members. I think that it's completely out of line and inappropriate as a board member to try to damage an investment that this board has made. So I think that it is out of line for any board member to interfere with operations of any of the companies that we have brought into Hardy County.
Well, what happens, Vanessa, if a board member does think that they have found information that may be derogative? What if a board member does find some information that they see derogative to a company, and they try to bring it up and get shot down, or they can't get information, well, what do? Just leave it alone?
I would say that this is the platform for you to bring your concerns up about companies during a meeting. We need to have some order that once we have funded a company and engaged them, we're not going to be discussing them at every board meeting. And I don't think that it would be appropriate by the time we've made that investment to then come back to this room and bring negative information about a company and try to damage their operation in Hardy County. Why would we do that?
Well, that throws a lot out there. If we don't know as a board about a company and we invest in it, then later we find out, hey, this is really not a good way to be going. We just keep going.
Well, I think it depends. If the investment has been made, then we should foster that company. If there's ongoing contractual obligations with that company, that would be appropriate to discuss.
Madam Chair, can I offer one comment?
Yes.
Donald, I think the language, let's don't get away from the language. There is a big difference between you asking questions about a project and the language that appears in C that says, board members should in no way hinder, being an operative word, the business operations. That's the other operative word. So, hindering business operations of any company the IDA is funding in some ways completely different issue, in my opinion, than a board member asking questions relevant to the project. I don't see that as the intent of this thing at all, to discourage board members from asking questions. I think hindering business operations is a completely different matter than asking questions.
Well, Ken, that's not what the chair just said.
That's not what she said.
She said that if we ask questions, once we've funded it, and then we start asking questions, she's not going to allow it. So what you said is different than what she said.
I think the issue, Donald, is that the same questions are brought up over and over again. Questions that have already been addressed, where the board has even taken a vote to declare it a dead issue because it has been in their minds at least vetted sufficiently that it is not an appropriate issue to bring back before the board. That is the way I took the chair's comment. That there are certain issues on certain projects that have been presented so many times and it just comes up over and over again, and there was actually a board motion, second, and vote to declare it a dead issue.
Okay, so you think that, and I know it's in the past, but some of the questions that was asked in the past about a certain business, you think those questions were answered?
That's not the issue. The issue is not what I think or not. I'm not a board member, but the board voted and said they felt like the issue had been addressed sufficiently that it should be a dead issue. When I read it, hindering business operations is something completely different than asking questions. I mean, that's,
Well, who makes that decision that it's hindering?
well, that's going to be up for the board to determine. I mean, hindering business
Up
operations.
to the board or up to the
is-
chair?
When the question comes up, Donald, the chair has a great
I
deal of
understand.
latitude
I
in
understand
terms
that.
of what goes on. So it's a combination of the two. And it's going to, any given issue is going to be treated differently, I'm sure. It just
Okay.
depends on what it is. But hindering business operations is, in my opinion, something completely different than asking legitimate questions. But at some point, when the question's been presented 100 times,
Oh,
and the board has said it's a dead issue, it's a dead issue.
I understand. Okay, thank you.
That microphone.
I became a board member in June of 2012. I received a memo from the office. Could you please fill me in on PF Mann and Sean Oaken so I can prepare? That was my statement because I was knowledgeable. In July, I brought a package which gave all the details, all the background of the work I did for the month. Let me ask a question, Mike. With your body language, you're on film. Are you a liaison, a commissioner, or a board member?
Horst, is what you're bringing up relevant to the rules of procedure
Yes, it
that
is.
we're discussing?
Yes, it is,
Okay.
because if he is a liaison, how many liaison reports has he filed? And to whom has he filed them? Because I don't think his participation in this as a liaison, when he told Don last time around, I've got the floor, I
Okay,
said, that's inappropriate.
okay.
That'll be all I have to say about that.
Any
Just a
other
bit of
comments on the rules of procedure? No.
I'm giving you background. This was provided, and it stated, I wanted to let each of you know that I have spoken to Sean Oaken, and he sends his apologies. He was flying in the air. Now, why do we accept just a simple statement like that from somebody that we're giving $2 million building to, that says there's answers that he will not give us? And who in this forum accepts those kind of statements? When you should say, we want the answers. If we had said as a board that give us the answers, he would have given the answers, and it would have been a dead issue. The reason that this kept on going, and not hundreds of times, Mr. Evers, not hundreds of times. This was a complete package. It had the Skype call for everyone. I handed it out, and according to Mr. Evers, he said, oh, you're not supposed to look at it. And it was put into that position until a couple of meetings ago when he said, oh, is that all it was? Public record? Oh, it's all right. And the first one that screened was Lori Durance. I don't want to see it when I offered to hand it out again.
Horst, we've had this whole conversation. This is probably about the 5th time that you've gone through the same details. This is the exact type of behavior that we're discussing right now. We are not going to sit here and waste everyone's time rehashing the same issues over and over and over again. If you have anything new to bring to the table, go ahead and make your point. If not, we're talking about the rules of procedure. If you have any issues or anything to add or any discussion, no, sir, it is not. And also, we have discussed that we are not going to be discussing the business operations of PF Mann.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other board comments? What's the pleasure of the board?
Go ahead and adopt them.
Would you like to make that a motion?
Yes.
Do we have a second?
I'll say.
Any other board discussion? Do we have any public comment? Mr. Kirkland?
Okay. I think on this number 6, I see some very good stuff in there, keeping the thing in order. I watch the state all the time, and they have everything goes click, 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 because they keep it. And that's fine, I'm all for that. But when Mr. Evers and you guys talk about what Horse is doing over and over, it's the same thing that's going on in this county and every agency, including your BOCC. You don't want to make things right, you don't want to follow the law and validate these companies and do what you're supposed to do, and then when they get caught, somebody exposes them, then you issue, this stuff has got to be against some, there's statutes that you're breaking by putting that stuff in there, some of it, and you're breaking every moral thing in the world. I mean, it's so ungodly what you people are doing. You really should be ashamed. And I mean that from the bottom of my heart. You really should be ashamed.
Any other comments? Yes, Mr. O'Neill.
I'd like to ask him which statute do we break?
Frank, that was for you. Robert Cole, Wachua. The part of the rules of procedure Don's talking about, you wouldn't need if these companies that are brought in here were properly vetted in the first place. It would answer a lot of questions. The Horse, when he came on the board, he found out information about a company, tried to get answers at these meetings, and you ignored him. That's the reason he had to keep bringing it up. You don't want to know, you don't want to search, you don't want to answer questions. That's the reason issues have to keep being brought up. We would like answers too. You guys are supposed to represent us. So when board members bring up questions, and of course there's only 2 that ever really bring up any questions, maybe they're representing the public the way they're supposed to. They're asking questions that the public asks them. So once again, if we vet these companies properly, we wouldn't have a lot of questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Cole. Mr. Coleman?
Okay. I guess, is it true, on this question, there was no prior policy on rules of procedure in the IDA? Is that right? Or there was? None, ever, right? Good. Now, someone is proposing to put rules of procedure into the IDA meetings. You guys have been talking about it for a few meetings, they're going back, they change the language, she comes back. One point of order. When you make changes to things, you really ought to say, it was this and now it's this. It was that and now it's that. Otherwise, you have no frame of reference for what got changed. Then you got a reason to say, well, why are you changing it? Oh, it makes all the sense in the world. Thanks a lot. It's very clear. Horst. I'm not going to get into why he's asking these questions over and over, but the fact is, he was out of order again this morning. I agree with that. Had no business talking about PF-MAN when you're talking about adopting these rules of procedure. He needs to straighten his game up. He is hindering the normal progress of this meeting. Now, he's doing it because of all the stuff that Mr. Cole just said. There's no question about that. Now, here's the point. Your board voted to send all of you, all your resumes, all your performance, all your comments, all your past deeds, your ethics complaints, voted to send all of you guys up to the commissioners to be evaluated, one by one. It gets up there, the liaison over there, who's not supposed to be saying a word, who's reading his iPad during all of these meetings, except the appropriate time that he just kind of like interjects and tries to sway your votes because he's the professor. He should be, I don't care what you're doing, you should be sitting in the back of the room. You're supposed to be liaisoning, watching. Now, if they want to
Mr.
ask you
Coleman?
something, they can call you up.
Mr. Coleman, let me just pause you for just a moment.
Rules of procedure. He's
It's-
talking about rules of procedure.
Mr. Coleman, it is our discretion to have him at the table, and it's our discretion to have him sit where he sits.
I'm saying that your discretion is fallacious.
Okay.
That it is clear.
Then continue.
There's no reason for this. He's not on the board, sitting there, and he acts like he's on the board. And he's swaying your votes. My point about the rules of procedure and Horst. Horst has got to clean his act up. Here's the point. Mr. Commissioner Thompson makes a motion in the commission to get rid of him, have him expelled out the back, I don't know. And they went and hired an outside lawyer, I don't know, $10,000 or whatever, to get rid of this guy. And that all started here with your board. You guys started this. You wanted everybody to be evaluated. It gets up there, he picks Horst out, he's going to get rid of a problem single-handedly. Now, here's my point, Commissioner.
Final comments, Mr. Coleman.
This is it. This board had no policy on this issue. None. The stuff you did to get rid of him was based upon nothing. Now you're trying to backfill it by putting in a policy. And then you're putting hinder business operations and warnings and stuff in a policy you never had. So this stuff happening to him is illegal. What you should do is start over. Tell him what you want him to do in the future and move on. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Coleman. As a point of clarification, I believe most of the members of this board have been here for several months and are well aware that we've been in discussion on rules of procedure since probably over 6 months ago it was brought up. So Henry's point is not a valid one, that they were recently cooked up to somehow create an issue for Horst. Any further public comment? If not, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed?
Aye.
Motion carries. And with that, we'll move into our project updates.
Thank you, Madam Chair. At this time, I'd like to introduce Mr. Sean Oakham to address the board relative to PF Mint.
I realize I'm not on the agenda, and I have no intentions of giving anything other than comments on the company. At this moment, I'd like some of your fellow community members to stand, basically some of my staff. If you'd all stand, please. And Mr. Coleman, I've never had the pleasure. Sean Oakham. And I'd love you to stand too. I would like you to stand if you don't mind.
No, I won't.
Okay.
Not part of your company.
No, okay, but what I wanted to do was, what I wanted to do was first I wanted to thank you, Mr. Coleman, for trying to be the eyes and watchdog of the community. I commend you. Also, for being I think you're a retired lieutenant colonel from the Air Force.
Yes, sir.
And a former productive member of an airline, UPS.
Yes, sir.
And thank you very much. Actually, I think we should all give him a round of applause for serving in the military. I think that that's very important, and I don't think that that should be overlooked or forgotten by the community. I think he's moved into an area where he wants to retire in values, and I think in his way, he's trying to improve the best he can for the community, and I thank you for that.
Absolutely.
Okay. So I have a couple questions that I'd like to pose to the public. I'm not here to answer questions, and I can do that privately. Mr. Coleman's called me privately on the phone course, has made comments in the public press. But I want to ask a few questions for reflection, if you don't object. What is economic development and the Economic Development Committee? Economic development, by definition, is the sustained, concerted actions of policymakers and communities that promote the standard of living and economic health of a specific area. Economic development can also be referred to as the quantitative and qualitative changes to an economy. Action can involve multiple areas, including the development of human capital, critical infrastructure, regional competitiveness, environmental sustainability, social inclusions, health, safety, literacy, investments, risk in investments, and balance of investments. This definition actually comes from a very famous economist by the name of Joseph Schumpeter, Nobel laureate, by the way. Quite an interesting individual. He defines economic growth as a phenomenon of market productivity, a rise in GDP. Consequently, as an economist, he points out that economic growth is one of the aspects of the process of economic development. Mansell and Wayne of the University of Iowa state that economic development has been understood since World War II to involve economic growth, namely the increase of per capita income, and if currently absent, the attainment of a standard of living equivalent to that of industrialized countries. Last time I checked, the United States did fall into that area of industrialized nations. Economic development can also be accomplished as a static theory that documents the state of the economy at a certain time. And again, according to Mr. Schumpeter, an equilibrium of a state of a document in economic theory can be by intervening factors coming from the outside. Now understand, he was only an Austrian-American economist, not native-born. But he was also quite a political scientist and quite recommended. Before I get into the coming from the outside, such as just about my entire staff at PF-MAN and the ones that are not here, let's talk about the free money that we've been accused of. Now, free money, interesting term. Nothing comes for free, certainly not in our society. Tax deductions, such as your home mortgage. How about college loans for our educated? How about medical benefits? How about Social Security? How do I figure Social Security is free money? We all pay Social Security, we all pay our taxes. Well, the average person, based on the Social Security Administration's number, pays $122,000 in a lifetime of work. That's a fair amount of money. The average person in the United States, male, lives to 78 years of age, a woman 76 years of age, give or take a year. Payouts last, however, only 6.7 years. So if you live past 72 years of age, you're living on free money. Our company has been accused in the press, in opinions, trying to damage our business. If you want to attack me, but don't attack my business. Don't attack my employees or the people that work in our economy, the people that are trying to support the economy here. We rent apartments here, we buy food here, we buy goods here for our business, we continue to grow our business, we continue to bring people in from the outside. We're bringing people in from England, we're bringing people from other counties, other states. My lead engineer, Ali, he's from Turkey. How does he think it looks when he's watching a bunch of Americans fight amongst each other, even after we have decided that we're going to try to improve the economic growth of our community? And yet, we have individuals that are focusing on my company, or maybe me, because of a past business experience I have with a gentleman that actually has been cited by the FBI as threatening my family, my employees, several air shows, and yet the kangaroo courts that exist, and I'm not getting into an argument over board members or anything else, but I'm being tried in the press with my company. Now, I actually asked my board if I should step down from my company because I don't want to tarnish the goodwill of my company. And the answer was no, because they felt that I'm providing proper leadership. So what kind of free money have we gotten? Yes, we did ask the Economic Development Committee here to help us search out between 35 or 51, whatever the number was, of different potential places to help grow our business. as most businesses do, whether it's a small business administration loan, something that they get as a deduced area. We got a rent abatement from your county, and I'm very grateful for what you guys have given us. You gave us 30 months of rent abatement. Our building was 6 months late, maybe our fault, doesn't really matter, but we have 30 months of free rent. There's been arguments over a $40,000 concrete floor that's been put in, whether it's correct or incorrect. But we've put probably $300,000, maybe more, in improvements in a facility that you, the county, and the taxpayers own. Additionally, the demographic of this county shows that 63% are high school graduates and only 8.7% are college graduates. Now, we currently have a staff of 13 people. 12 have bachelor's or better. The average economic income in this county is $14,299. It's on your own website. The average salary of my staff is over $37,000. So the rent abatement that we have was to attract us to come here. Absolutely, we chased you down and we asked for it. And there was background and research done on our company. We clearly stated that we were a startup business, clearly. The county clearly took a risk on us doing business here. Absolutely. I admit to a graduating kindergarten, and I'm proud of it. But I am bringing business into the area. I have brought more people into the area than my requirement required me to do. And I'm making the very best effort I can to make my business successful for my employees, our community members, and people that spend money in our economy to grow the economy. Now, Mr. Coleman here, again, as I say, I applaud him. And he took an oath when he went into the military. And that oath was, I will support and defend the Constitution of the United States against all enemies, foreign and domestic. That I will bear the faith and allegiance to the same, and that I will obey the orders of the President of the United States and the orders of the officers appointed over me. I took this directly from the military website because I didn't remember it myself. Now, Horst, of course, didn't take this oath. And most of the people in this room didn't take this oath.
Excuse me, I was in the military.
Okay.
Correct the record.
Then I correct the record. I don't know much about either gentleman. And I'm not trying to attack, I'm trying to point out, that's all. And again, I'm applauding Mr. Coleman and his efforts to look out for us. I truly do.
Thank you.
But I want to talk about one word in that phrase, one word in particular, and that's the word of enemies. Now, Webster's Dictionary, and I realize that this is only one person's definition, Webster's Dictionary says that a person who feels hatred for, fosters harmful designs against, or engages in antagonistic activities against another, an adversary, an opponent, or an organization. I think that's an important word, enemies. In a community of our size, I don't think enemies are something that we can afford. I think that we need to work together to try and resolve any differences that are there, rather than he said, she said, pointing fingers over something that could be really minor. It appears that PF Man has fallen into the camp of an enemy by persons who claim to support the community. Now, we bring job and economic growth that is tangible. You're looking at some of my staff here right now. Plus, you've got 4 or 5 more that are moving here. And we're actively interviewing for people. And if people want a job, we'll interview you. Please give us your resume. Tell us. We're having difficulty finding quality engineers, finding quality people for what we have. The majority of our staff is engineering. We have brought tangibility to the county. We've been accused of having plastic machines in our facility. My machines are anything but plastic. My machines are serious, no-joke machines. We're having real trouble learning how to use them, to be quite honest. They're very complicated. The materials that we're using, we're having trouble cutting. People are saying that we don't have robots in our plant. Damn right, we don't. The reason we don't have them in our plant is because we haven't got everything in place yet to be able to produce the products that one of our customers wants us to produce. PF Man is a manufacturing company. That's what we do. We design and manufacture things. Yes, we have a customer that's providing a rotary engine, which, by the way, I promoted, and provides generators and electronics, which, yes, by the way, I promoted. But that's not what this board voted on when they agreed to give us free money of 30 months rent abatement, which we have more than paid for by the improvement in the facility that sits on the property, much of which is on record with the EDC and IDA, by the way. What we've provided is jobs, economic growth, and opportunity to the county. We've taken risks. I've taken personal risks, both financially, emotionally, and morally. Many people say, you can sue, you can't sue. Obviously, we have to do the normal things a business do by sending out letters of statement saying you can't defame us and so forth. That's because I'm trying to protect the goodwill of our company. But nobody is judgment proof. Whether you have a trust that can be broken or you're under the judgment of God himself, nobody is judgment proof. And I don't think judgment should be cast upon us when we're doing what we're supposed to, which is bringing jobs, growth, and tangible improvement to the area. We have improved the property which is owned by somebody else. We're bringing education to the area. We're bringing technology to the area. We're improving the standard of living to the area. We have improved health to the community. We have developed the economy, and by definition, according to Mr. Schumter, the very items that your EDC tries to follow and advocate, I think we have done a good job with economic development. I hope that we can sustain that economic development. And I would hope that the community would stand behind us so that our business isn't being besmirched and damaged just simply because some people don't like what's going on or don't want growth in a community that needs it. I grew up in a very small community, and there's all sorts of Chinese whispers as the statements go on. If you have a problem with me, take it up with me. I have no problems with that. If you have a problem with my company, come see myself or my operations officer at my company. But I would appreciate, and it's to the best interest of the community who have actually invested money and time in our company, whether correctly vetted or not. You have already spent the time to let us have a business here. You have welcomed the money that I pay my staff to buy food in this community. You have welcomed the money that I have paid my staff to rent the apartments in this community. You have welcomed my staff to this community to buy homes and look around and buy clothing and buy gasoline and support the businesses. Frankly, you were building a building that was going to be rented out. We're a tenant. Why are we getting in the middle of a political fight of this board and this county? I don't understand that. I understand you want freedom of information. Everything we've done is, except for our business plan, is public knowledge. Freely public knowledge. So whether you're a constitutionalist thinking the first right of amendment should be shown out, or whether you think the government should show everything, I support that. If you actually take a look, we have Mr. Snowden, who is living in Russia right now under treasonous acts by our President of the United States, and yet he is being nominated for the Nobel Peace Prize for openness of what's out there. So if you have issue with me, take it up with me. But I'd appreciate that you don't jeopardize my staff, your community members, and the money to this economy and the work that this EDC is trying to do by using a kangaroo court in the press with my opinion and he said, she said. I'm not going to engage in mudslinging, but I will vehemently defend my company, my staff, and my collective honor. I thank you very much for the time, and unfortunately we will be rude because my staff needs to get back to work.
Can you answer your questions?
I'll talk to you after the meeting if I may. Sure.
No, we're not going to get into question and answer. I understand. I'm letting you know we're not going to get into question and answer period. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. I'm going to ask you to sit down, and I'm going to ask the audience members to stay in order. Thank you. Thank you. No. Mr. Oken, before your staff leave, I just want to make some comments about some of the things that you shared. It is unfortunate, and I feel like we, as a board, have failed in your need to come here and defend your company. And on my behalf, I would like to apologize that you would have to do that. I, for one, am grateful for entrepreneurs like you who are willing to partner with Hardee County and willing to come into our community and to bring opportunities, especially opportunities in technology where, you know, to be honest, we wouldn't have a future if we didn't have this money to invest in companies like you. We would be way down on the list of choices for companies with technology opportunities to come to. So I, for one, am grateful as a mother of 3 children that I hope can find jobs in this community one day. And I just wanted to let you and your employees know that we appreciate the work that you're doing and hope to see very successful things. And I think that I represent the voice of the majority and not the minority in Hardee County. So thank you very much.
My pleasure. Thank you.